my former mother-in-law, pointed at me across the quiet courtroom and let out a loud laugh. She leaned over to her high-priced attorney and mocked me for showing up to court without legal representation. But when the presiding judge entered through the side door and addressed me directly as Colonel Jenkins, her arrogant smile vanished in an instant. My name is Valerie Jenkins, and for 20 years, I served as a senior legal officer in the United States military. After my retirement, I chose to keep my past achievements private while raising my 11-year-old daughter, Chloe, in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Most people in our small town assumed I was just a former low-level clerk, which suited me fine. My husband Nathan had been a brave helicopter pilot with the National Guard before a tragic training accident took his life 3 years ago. In the beginning, his mother, Eleanor Vance, and his older brother, Julian, brought over warm meals and cried alongside us. However, grief soon twisted Eleanor into a bitter woman who blamed me for the sudden death of her son. Over the following months, Eleanor constantly judged my simple lifestyle and made passive-aggressive comments about my parenting. The true betrayal arrived 6 weeks ago, when a courier delivered legal documents to my front porch. Eleanor and Julian had filed a formal court petition, seeking total custody of Chloe while alleging that I was an unstable mother, incapable of managing finances. Rather than spending tens of thousands of dollars on a flashy defense attorney, I decided to handle the case entirely on my own. I spent weeks organizing records, military service documents, school reports, and detailed text logs inside my old leather briefcase. While Eleanor hired one of the most ruthless family law specialists in the state, I relied strictly on facts and quiet preparation. On the morning of the hearing, Eleanor sat proudly beside her lawyer, Attorney Sterling, assuming she was about to secure an easy victory. When I walked to the defense table carrying only my worn folder, Eleanor scoffed loudly for everyone in the gallery to hear. That satisfaction crumbled the moment. Judge Prescott took the bench and greeted me with deep respect for my prior service. Attorney Sterling began his opening statement by depicting me as a reclusive, secretive woman who isolated her daughter from extended family members. He suggested my military background made me emotionally detached and unfit to nurture a child. I remained completely composed at my desk, knowing that emotional outbursts would only weaken my defense while disciplined. Evidence would speak for itself. When Eleanor took the witness stand to testify about my supposed neglect, I calmly stepped forward to begin my cross-examination. I presented documented evidence showing that she had rejected 17 separate invitations to visit Chloe over the past year. Eleanor squirmed in her chair as the judge reviewed records proving that my daughter was actually an honor student thriving in choir and sports. Next, Attorney Sterling called Julian to present printed text, messages that allegedly proved I had cut off communication with the family. I immediately produced the full, unedited chat logs, demonstrating that Julian had intentionally omitted key replies, where I warmly invited them to holidays. Under direct questioning, a panicked Julian confessed that his mother had forced him to proceed with the dishonest lawsuit. During the afternoon recess, I stood near the marble hallway windows and took a deep breath as painful memories surfaced. I remembered my years spent prosecuting severe international cases and supporting families through unimaginable tragedies. I realized that my decision to keep those heavy burdens hidden had led my in-laws to mistake my quiet nature for emotional weakness. When court resumed, I called my first witness, Ray Mitchell, a respected former military investigator who had worked alongside me for nearly 8 years. Ray testified under oath about my unwavering integrity while handling high-stakes cases involving high-ranking officials. His powerful words reminded the entire courtroom that my professional background was built on seeking truth rather than pursuing personal glory. I then called Chaplain Frank Douglas to the stand to provide insight into my personal character and emotional resilience. He shared moving stories of how I had offered compassionate support to grieving military families during their darkest moments. As Chloe watched from the gallery, she learned about a side of my life that I had never discussed at the dinner table. My neighbor Brenda Miller also testified, describing how I always rushed over to assist neighbors in times of domestic emergencies or financial hardship. She pointed out that while I rarely talked about myself, I was always the first person to offer help when others were struggling. Her sincere testimony dismantled every lingering claim that I was an isolated or uncaring mother. During my closing statement, I spoke directly to the bench without reading from notes, or resorting to emotional dramatics. I reminded Judge Prescott that grief over losing Nathan was understandable, but it did not give anyone the right to tear a healthy home apart. I asked the court to base its ruling entirely on the facts, which proved Chloe was safe and loved. Judge Prescott reviewed the extensive evidence before sternly dismissing the custody petition filed by Eleanor and Julian. He ruled that the accusations lacked any factual basis and ordered Eleanor to pay a significant portion of my legal expenses. I closed my eyes in quiet relief, knowing that my long battle to protect my daughter was finally over. Outside the courthouse, Eleanor approached me with tears in her eyes and apologized for letting her deep grief turn into bitter hostility. She confessed that blaming me had been easier than confronting the painful reality of losing her son. I told her that I did not hold any hatred toward her and granted her permission to remain a part of the life of Chloe. In the months that followed, our extended family began the long process of rebuilding trust through small, honest efforts. True strength does not require loud declarations or public displays of status to prove its worth. Standing firm in truth, remaining calm under pressure, and protecting those we love will always speak louder than false accusations.